Welcome, everybody. It is a fantastic day in Smart CEO world. I am Kyra Rénel. I am the Smart CEO, the founder of the Smart CEO community, and I have the pleasure of being your host today for our roundtable. We are virtual across all of our platforms, and we're excited to be here with you. And I am thrilled to have a conversation about something that is so critical in this conference season. And so, to do that today, I have none other than one of my favorite bankers period. And that is Branden Morris with JP Morgan Chase, VP of Business Banking. Branden, welcome, welcome, welcome to the conversation with me today.
Thank you, Kyra. It's great to be here as always. And hello to everybody out there in the stratosphere.
Absolutely. So we're thrilled about it, whether you're catching us live or catching a replay. I am excited to be on with you. I'm really thrilled that we have so many different ways to get good information out to our people. And because we do, we're taking advantage of this virtual drop into your world to talk about conference readiness. And you may say, okay, Kyra, like, why is that a big deal? And why do you care about whether or not I'm ready for a conference? The reason why is because when we go to conferences, especially our high level trade show conferences, the goal is that we utilize those spaces as business owners as for me as a business development experience. So, what does it look like for all of my customers to be in one room at the same time and me not be ready? It looks like chaos, right? So, we have figured out over time that when we make really strong investments, that the goal is that we're making also very intentional preparation. So, Branden, I know you sit in a different seat than I do, and I would typically be coming to like share and pitch the Kyra company to you. So, tell me about the seat you sit in during conference season and how you typically looked at conference participation.
Of course. And of course, I've at one point I sat in your seat as well. So we're going to bounce back and forth from those perspectives. But
Yeah.
now I'm with a major corporation, and typically a major corporation like a JP Morgan Chase is going to have a very big presence in these conferences. They're going to have a huge setup. They're going to have a lot of personnel there and a lot of opportunities for you as the business owner to engage with multiple people who are attending the conference. And then normally there's going to be in either a breakout session or some gathering, an opportunity for someone from JP Morgan Chase to present on something. So depending on what the conference is about, they're going to have personnel from that department. And then in some cases, they'll have some just general senior leaders there.
Okay,
Um,
wait, because you said a whole lot. So I would have like take the first little chunk, which was they will have a huge presence. So we're gonna like dissect that, and then I want to go to JP Morgan Chase having, or the idea of an organization like JP Morgan Chase having a designated place where they're having a conversation or they've got something special set aside. So let's talk about why, before we get into the slides, right? Let's talk about why would a firm have exhibitors there behind a booth and a presence of folks just moving around a conference. Like, what's the benefit of that for the corporation?
so we want to make sure as a corporation that you have access to people because people have the information about whatever that corporation is representing at that conference. The individuals have that information. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Typically there are going to be a lot of volunteers who are helping to do various things. So some are going to be greeters, some are going to be subject matter experts, some are going to be there to literally meet with different individuals one-on-one about some other aspects of the business and of the unit that they're representing there. So it's very important that a corporation have all of these moving parts so that when you as the business owner show up, you have ample opportunities to connect and get what you need out of the engagement if you're prepared. And I know you're going to talk about that a little bit
Yes.
but you have to be
You
prepared.
know, I wrote an ebook a while ago about it's called Show Up Ready. And it was the awakening that I had the very first time I went to a networking event, Branden. And it was like local, it was in Houston. it was like the convergence of all of the minority associations at a chamber event. I had never been. I was green to networking. I was new to entrepreneurship, and the lady I was going with, Carmen, I got there before Carmen did. And so somewhere I'd read something that said you put your business cards like in your right pocket and then you put the new ones in your left pocket or
Mhm.
something weird like that, right? So I'm getting
Mhm.
in the car. Here I am, this corporate, like super green. I'm a little introverted, believe it or not. I'm not as much anymore, but I was very like nervous. So I pep talked myself, probably played a really good song, jumped out of the car, and I was like, okay, you can do this. Well, I tell this story even in the book. Unbeknownst to me, Brandon, I walk right into the green room. I was early, so the event doors weren't open, but I walk into the green room. Who's in the green room? All of these leaders, presidents, CEOs, all these executives, the sponsors. And when I sat down, I'll never forget it. A former banker at Comerica Bank, she was a senior community leader at Comerica Bank. She cleared space for me. She and her colleagues. She's like, "Oh, have a seat." Let me tell you what two things were going on. One, I looked like I should have been there. Two, I was walking with confidence because I was ready for whatever was in front of me. But number three, I was so kind and humbled by it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she made a seat. She made a seat for me." However, it wasn't until I sat down, was eating or snacking on whatever was available, and I look up and I saw the sign that said green room. And then I
Mhm.
started listening to the conversations, and I thought to myself, "Oh, I better not say anything because I'm not supposed to be in here." Nobody knew, nobody questioned me because I showed up what? Ready.
Prepared. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so you go right to the bullseye. But I made great connections in that room. And that was, I think, the catalyst for me realizing that showing up ready was no longer an option. Like it's just what you do. And so to your point, and I wanna like micro dissect this other thing. The greeters aren't necessarily just local banking volunteers. Those are leaders in the organization that just may be wearing a volunteer shirt, right? Like we might not want to slip on those, right?
Yeah, you don't want to take for granted anybody that you're speaking with
That's
at the
right.
conference, whoever is representing the corporation. You never know who that could be. But
Yeah.
again, always be prepared. I mean, one of the things that I know you like to cover, and that's something that's very important to me, is having a strong value proposition,
Hmm.
and that should be ready to go at a moment's notice. However, you have to also learn how to read the room. So if you're talking to someone and you're having this long drawn out conversation and you're not really truly getting the feedback that you feel you need to
Yeah.
be getting, just read the room. You may need to pivot. You may be talking to the wrong person. If you see multiple people standing there, it's okay to talk to multiple people in that area because they may
Yeah.
serve different functions. And so what may be interesting to one person may not be as interesting to the other person. If they don't walk you over to a different person, then ask, hey, who here handles this or who here
Hmm.
focuses on that, and they'll get you to the right person.
Yeah. It's really okay to ask those questions. We'll talk about the last National Minority Supplier Development Conference that we were both at was in New Orleans. Last year was in Baltimore. But in New Orleans, one of the things that I loved, and I saw this for Amazon, like Amazon had this mammoth size experience, right? Going through the exhibit space. So you couldn't really go through it without going through Amazon, whether you went on accident or not. But one of the things I love about how they showed up is they had people absolutely everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I do mean they weren't just in the exhibit space. They were around the facility, around the conference center, inviting you to their experience, helping you learn more. And they have folks from every area and division that you could think of. And so when I think about how that looks, and of course, JP Morgan Chase always has a very prominent position in the exhibit space as well. And it's really powerful for me, of course, because I feel like JP Morgan Chase is part of my family, like to see my colleagues engaging with other business owners. And I'm even like out there in the field, like, no, have you talked to JP Morgan Chase? Because so and so's over there. They can talk to you about what you're focusing on. But I think just to go one step deeper, Brandon, when you think about maybe from your previous seat as a business owner when you were kind of preparing yourself, lacing up your shoes to show up, right? What was one of the things that you would kind of do to prepare yourself before you, before you attended or walked through the doors, or at the exhibit, or really at the conference in general, because it starts at the door.
It does. It does. And the one of the biggest things that I did was research everybody who was going to be there and make sure that I targeted very specific people I wanted to talk to. So
Mhm.
the last time I went to a conference as a business owner, this had to be close to 8 or 9 years ago. It was in Detroit, and my partner and I get up there, and we knew uh, uh, who the keynote speakers were. We knew who was teaching each of the breakout sessions and everything like that. And so we game planned um, on
Mm.
who, not just which sessions we would go to, but we were reaching out before the conference to these people. If we can get in touch with them, great. But if we can just talk to someone in their department, that's fine. But we were trying to at least let them know that we were going to be there, that we were
Yeah.
traveling in town to see them, just to kind of, let them know that we appreciate what you're bringing to the table. We appreciate the information that you are, that you're going to be providing. And if at all possible, I'd love to, talk with you one on one, just kind of on the side.
Yeah.
And that really helped because we got a couple of personal invitations to offshoot events that weren't actually a part of the actual conference,
Yes.
but they would get a private, conference room at a different hotel or something like that. And just for like a very small group of people, they would invite them in and have some more intimate conversations. And
Hmm.
so it felt good, but it didn't happen if I didn't reach out to them, beforehand to say, hey, this is who I am. This is my value proposition. I would love to, have a one-off conversation with you when we get there. So that's
That's
a
good.
big part of that preparation piece that you talk about.
That's really big, Brandon. I just saw one of our colleagues here in the Houston area. I just saw a post where they have the I'm gonna call them out too because I love it. They had the banner for the conference, for the
Mm.
National Minority Supplier Development Conference that's coming up in Atlanta. And they had a link, and it said, it was a photo on there as well. It said, hey, we'll be attending. If you'd like to meet with us, please click the link. And I love that because your engagement is your like what you said, the preparation, your how you prepare changes the game. Just last week, we sent out our inquiry emails for all of our folks that we've met over the last 2 years. Hey, we're going to be there. We'll be back. Folks that we've been courting or that are courting us, we'll see you soon. And for some, it's, hey, do you want to talk before we get there? That way, when we see each other, it's all high fives and giggles, take a photo, and we know we have a meeting on the calendar. Maybe so, because then I can go do and spend my time doing some other things. And so I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but I want everybody to understand, like, this is a layered and a progressive process. Like, don't expect to go to your first event and land. Now it can happen. Now, let's be real clear, it can happen, and land your largest client without having some layers of communication with them, because they're there to talk and share and show, and they are talking to hundreds of people every single day. So if you're not memorable, if you're not disruptive, if you're not immediate in action, or ask them how they want you to follow up, that's another thing we'll get to. Then you could get lost in the sauce. So let's get to some of the slides. We have a little prep for you guys. Let's see if we can't bring these slides up and get moving. So we have a phenomenal producer behind the scenes that's driving us today. So we're going to get into it, guys. It's about mastering this trade show and conference. We want you to understand how to do it. Be strategic about your process, right? Thousands of dollars are spent in registration, travel, preparation. And if you're like me, you always need a couple new conference outfits to go. And you want to make sure that you're ready. And so all of those executive expenses and all those professional development expenses that you are spending, that's code for where those line items are on your P&L, guys. Um, you want to make sure you're spending it well. And if you're bringing team members with you, that is another an additional travel expense. So maybe if you're doubling down on the expenses like we typically do, then I guarantee you better have a game plan and a strategy for how that's going to work. We can keep it going. All right. So, why is this conversation important? Branden and I have spent our time really just breaking that down for you in the most simplistic way. We want you all to be empowered by this. We want you to understand, like, if you're going to do it well. That's the bottom line. So, um, one of the challenges that a lot of business owners have is that they get there and they see other people doing things that they didn't think to do. So there's this FOMO, fear of missing out, or you kind of get this anxiety because you didn't prepare. And I've seen this. You didn't prepare, and they're like, okay, well, where are you going? And where are you going? And who's going over here? And who's here? And who's there? Now that energy is wasting your valuable time that you could be spending strategizing, like Branden said, on who you need to meet with. You can't be everywhere. You may not have the same depth of relationships that everybody else has. You need to go at a pace that's going to benefit you and your business and your team down the line. As I'm saying that because it is much more than a social event. And for those of that kind of get caught up in that, it's bigger than that. There is a true strategic methodology to attending, and you need to understand what it is. There's a professional development component, there's a business development component, and then there's that ecosystem building piece that you will be doing. So we want you to understand how you're benefiting as you're attending, and understanding the different ways you attend. Branden just spoke to it. Attending as a member of the JP Morgan Chase firm is very different than attending as Branden, the business owner. Very different experience. And we also spoke, or Branden also mentioned, sometimes the firm obviously has panels or discussions or even breakout sessions or even private events that they're hosting. Um, for just a second, Branden, what would be a great reason for a corporation to host a private event, to invite a select group of folks there? What are some of the reasons why they do that?
Uh, it could be several reasons. I'm going to go back and speak to when I went as a business owner, and the private event we got to go to. It was with a large oil and gas company, and they were talking very specifically about some bids, some active bids that they had available, uh, both national and some local.
Hmm.
And they wanted to talk through how important it was to get into their supplier portal, making sure we knew how to get through some of the landmines and some of the issues that one might have in trying to get approved to be in their supplier portal. And then they were really setting real expectations around what it's going to take to possibly win the bids that they were putting
Mm.
out. So it gave us a lot of perspective, and in a smaller room where they only had a select few people, we actually had a lot of time to ask as many questions as we wanted. A lot of follow up, a lot of scenarios and what ifs. It was a lot different than being in a room with, let's just say, 50 to 100 people,
Yeah.
and you lose some of that connection, right? I'm not saying that you just lose it, but we're in a very competitive environment. If you're trying to stand out, like you were just saying, you have to be memorable, you have to be impactful, you have to be succinct. Um, that bar is raised when you're around more and more people. But when
Yeah.
you're in a much smaller environment, you can kind of, if you don't move as fast as the next person over here, well, now you have that one-on-one opportunity with them, and you can kind of move at the pace that you need to move at to be successful. So that's what I would say. That's one example, but it just depends on the type of conference you're at. You and
Yeah.
I have seen each other at several different types of conferences. So,
Mhm.
you brought up the NSMDC conference in New Orleans, but we were also at the the National Urban Leagues conference in New Orleans,
You
and
are.
that was a different feel, where the National Urban League has a bunch of different aspects and a bunch of different initiatives and departments that they were representing there. So, now any breakout sessions are going to be targeted around a line of business that you may not be affiliated with.
That's right.
So you have to really, be intentional about navigating through to get to exactly what would directly impact your business. Make sure that you're there on time. Make sure that you are intentional about knowing who's going to lead that activation, um, and follow through accordingly.
Yeah, that's very true. And I'll say this, I attended both conferences very differently. So when I was in New Orleans this past July at the Urban League conference, I was also a host. So I was on stage for multiple days. So there's even a different experience there. So I'm very intentional about what I get access to, what I spend my time doing, because the bulk of my energy was to be on that stage and to facilitate dynamic conversations in the lounge where people kind of came to network. And so that was a different experience. So if you're experiencing the conference, as a speaker, your experience and journey is going to be very different than if you were simply going as a business owner seeking to exchange information with other businesses. So I just want you all to understand the value of this conversation we're having. Definitely, as this last bullet says, this could easily be a paid experience, but we've chosen in our Smart CEO community to typically always invest first. And so our goal is to make sure that you continue to get it. And if you remember last year, we invested as well around this time in our conference season planning because we want to make sure that we are investing well and maximizing our dollars. And so we can jump on to the next slide. So let's talk about the process. Much of this we've pre-gamed you with, you all, and then after this webinar today, you will, if you've registered, if you haven't registered, click the link. You can register, and we are going to send you the blueprint, and we're going to send you the blueprint so you will have what you need. But getting very clear, right? Learning how to set measurable goals. So typically, when we go to a conference, Brandon, like you said, and the other thing we didn't mention is I typically get on the app first. Right?
Right.
The conference app is the thing. So you get on that conference app, and before you go, once you've registered, you get all your credentials. First of all, make sure your profile is set up exactly the way you want it, and make sure that you are representing yourself, your organization, exactly the way you want to. And then once you do that, the app is an offline conference experience, or I should say, a digital conference experience. And so you literally can start having conversations, researching people. You don't even they might click you out to LinkedIn or something like that, but you literally have everything at your fingertips. And it's going to encourage more people to start utilizing the app. So if you're using the app in preparation, that's a golden ticket right there. And you can have conversations to say, oh, I'm headed to lunch, while you're in the app, and say, oh, I'm sitting at table 43. Would you like to join me? And then now you can have more dynamic dialogue and more intentional conversations with people in these layered, I talked about it being layered, in these this layer, because you're not, like Brandon said, having to compete with thousands of people. It's just you and that person now. And so you can put yourself in position. But not only getting clear about the goals, knowing how many businesses, who's on the target list? Who do you want? And what do you want from them? Knowing what you want, to Brandon's point, is how you establish that value proposition. You might want something different from each one of the organizations. Like, I know for a fact I want something different from General Motors than I want from CVS. And the difference in what I want is programming access, client visibility. Like, how do I want that? And I'm able to articulate that. And when you're able to do that, you put yourself in a position to make the person's job easier that you're talking to. I have come back and drafted complete scripts for the person that I met at the conference that wants to move our information through their organization. And so if you get really detailed, you can ask them, so tell me what you want me to send you, because I'll send it I'll make it easy. I will dissect that thing and make it so simple that all you literally have to do is copy and paste, and I'm taking the work out of it. That's one thing. But then once you have your target and kind of know your target, go there first. Attack the target first. Everything else are, cherries on top. What do you think, Brandon?
I think that's a great idea. What when you were talking, one of the things that came to mind for me is yes, if you're a small business and you see these major corporations, at the conference, and you're going to talk to these major corporations, have some perspective about the conversation. Of course, we'd always love to do business directly with a major corporation. However, most times you would have to come in as a subcontractor, which means that there is already a larger company, not a major corporation, but there's a larger company that is already providing that good or service to the major corporation. But there's more than likely some subcontracting opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's not only about creating that relationship with the major corporation, but find out who the supplier is that is in your line of business that you can potentially work with as a subprime to still in some way indirectly work with that corporation. So this goes back to your strategy and being very clear about your targets, but don't always, say, hey, if I can't work directly with this multi-trillion dollar corporation, then it was a bust. No, there's levels and there's layers to it. So, make sure you're covering all of your bases.
That's you hit it home. I was laughing last year. I went to three different organizations, and each one of them asked me, "Are you working with so and so?" And they listed a sub.
Hmm.
And by the third one, I was like, you know what? So I went straight to LinkedIn and sent that person a message. I said, at this point, the following organizations have asked me if I'm working with you. We need to set up a call.
Hmm.
And they were very receptive. And we've had, I think, probably our third call. We have another one coming. But it's because they're already in position, right? Why not unify the process and add some additional support? I have my own relationships with these individuals that are in these roles in procurement and supplier diversity and equity and what have you. But the goal here is how do we make it easier for them to do their job, right? By not duplicating efforts. Brandon, you hit that on the head. I was so tickled by the time the last person asked me, "Are you working with so and so?" I was like, you know what? I've had it up to here. Let me
Yeah.
make a phone call
Yeah. I mean,
because, yeah, go ahead.
good. I was just going to say there's some corporations that don't work with a certain size business directly, period. Like when I was a business owner and we were going after this specific major corporation, they literally said, you're too small for us to work with directly. You have to go through this
Right.
particular prime. And that's how we got a chance to work with them. So there's business out there. You just have to understand where you are in the grand scheme of things and manage your expectations. There's nothing wrong with starting off small and getting your foot in the door.
Yeah. Big, Brandon. That's so big. We all go in with all of these different expectations. I'm gonna brag on one of our local smart CEOs here in the greater Houston area. I forget which conference we were at, but we were spending some time together. And this past year, before she went back to WeBank, which is the Women Business Enterprise, it's their conference, national conference. So this is the organization that certifies women business owners nationally. She went back to the conference. She called me, and it was probably like, and only certain people can do this, right? It's like probably 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And she just started going in. I was like, okay, let me get the fog out of my eyes. And she's like, so I had a question for you. And she starts running this list down. And she's like, this is what I have. This is what I have. This is what I have. So I said, at this point, you're going through conference mastery with me right now. I said, what about this, this, and this? I need you to make sure you got this covered, that covered, this covered. Long story short, not only did she kill it this year in the spring at the conference, but she was a featured small business retailer. So she had her consumer packaged good, her CPG item there, and she sold it. And not only did she cover the cost, I'm sure, of her conference attendance and then some at the conference. And so now she's selling her merchandise to a national audience. And it was the difference between lack of preparation and preparation. So don't tell me doing the work doesn't make sense and doesn't matter. You talk to her because she made a chunk of money from the conference alone, not to mention any follow up, any contracts, any engagements, any repeat sales. as a result. And she has a product and a service. So don't tell me what can't be done and what this process won't do. All she did was listen.
Yep.
And because she has a different kind of access, she made a phone call as on an early morning and got what she needed from me and went into action. She's like, I'm ready. I'm ready. And
Very
that's
much.
the kind of outcome we want for our business owners. So I'm gonna jump past crafting an impactful message because get in the mirror. Get in the mirror and talk to yourself. You are whoever it is you're hoping to stand in front of, and talk to yourself. See what you look like saying what you need to say about your business. I know that sounds super elementary, but it works.
That's big time. No, you're right. If you want to come across a certain way, you really do have to practice and get feedback. Don't just practice in the mirror to yourself, but practice to someone that you trust to give you
That's right.
feedback. And good, honest, solid
Yeah.
feedback. And keep that in mind. So no, that's it's simple, but it's
It's
big.
huge. Excuse me, and I'm getting over whatever the crud is that's been floating around Houston. But um Branden, I feel like if I sat in front of you and I said, Branden, this is my strategy, which is not something that I would not do. I probably would do this and say, this is my strategy. You're going to say to me, Kyra, tell me why, right?
Yeah.
That is my value proposition. When I can answer that question efficiently to you, who I know is going to give me feedback, guidance, and direction, probably offer me a new way to think, the value from our exchange is immense. I
Mhm.
can take that and capitalize on that in every conversation that I have with folks, at the conference. And I do want to say, earlier I said the conference starts at the door. It literally started when you registered. It started when you started looking at folks on LinkedIn. It started when you started upgrading your profile on LinkedIn. It started when you started to work through the app or the tools, and you start upgrading and increasing and enhancing the view that you have
Mhm.
and what you look like. And I want you to think about the fundamentals of that, because being on brand at every touch point is critical. I'm gonna tell you guys this. I learned this yesterday. Um, several years ago, I was exhibiting at a Black Enterprise in an entrepreneur summit in Charlotte, and in doing so, I had encounters that I didn't know I had until yesterday.
Mhm.
And I got there. We were on brand, myself and a couple of team members. We were debuting the Smart CEO platform there. And so we were setting up our exhibit and all of the banners and all that. And we had invested to be an exhibitor, and that's a big deal. And so we were setting up our exhibit space and doing our thing. One of the things that we did, and actually Kayla, our chief of staff, was just, she's reckless when it comes to it. I mean that in a good way. um I was so sick, like just had the worst cold ever, and kind of like what I just got over, right? The worst
Mhm.
cold ever. We're in Charlotte, and all the things that could go wrong for me were going wrong. Like my clothes didn't fit like I wanted them to. Like
Mhm.
I was tired, I was exhausted. I was like, but we are here. We got to do this. And I remember going over to the exhibit, to the conference, the convention center, and I feel like Mark Cuban was passing us by, and other folks were there. We're walking in, we're headed in, we're getting something like some tea or coffee or what have you, and someone is in there, and they asked us, not knowing who we were, and they said, "Hey, we're doing interviews with business owners." They saw our credentials, but they didn't know who was who. Would you be interested? And before I could even turn around, because at this point I'm like, super nasally, Kayla's like, "Yes, she will. What time?" Right? And I go up and find out that I'm doing this interview with Nationwide and this series on entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know who the producer of that was.
Mhm.
So yesterday, I'm in a conversation with someone who's now a dear friend, and they said to me, "Ever since Black Enterprise, I've never forgotten you." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Tell me what that was." They walked back to an experience where I handed them my kind of my capability statement. But the way we did it, remember being on Brand Matters, is I did it in a magazine style document. And so it was a big picture on the front. It's all about brand awareness. our credentials, my capability statement, a bit about the company. But it was like this maybe 2, 3 page document that they could take. You didn't, it's not something you throw away, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that she said to me was, Kyra, I remember thinking to myself that as for as many business owners as I come in contact with, especially minority business owners, Black business owners, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone package and present themselves in such a way. And you literally gave, like, it's almost like I gave it to them with no, without a second thought, and I didn't. But she said it was so well put together. Your materials, we're talking about the materials that I left with them, were so well put together. I just remembered you, and then I followed you, and then I paid attention to you. And I will say, since then, I've had um, several articles in the magazine. I've also had several opportunities to speak. And so when you start thinking about the impact, you don't know who's watching or who's impacted by it. So when we go back to think about these organizations having multiple folks floating around, you have no clue who they are. And so when you get in a position and you can present yourself, doing it in a way that fully represents you, make sure you do it right. Make sure the photo that you use on that app is right. I know this sounds super elementary, but these are the things that stick around. And because people will screenshot and they will try to remember things or send it off to their team members, make sure you're proud of what they're sending. So we can jump back into the slides. I'm not going to try to kill that horse, but I just really want us to know how important that prep is. And
Yeah.
then we just spoke on the unforeseen challenges. I mean, anything could happen. Logistics. When we were leaving New Orleans, not necessarily for the National Urban League, but it was actually Essence. I was there for an activation. The hurricane was coming into Houston. Be prepared.
Right.
If you're going down on your last dime, be mindful that you need some resources in the kitty so that you can maneuver if you need to. Be mindful that you want to make sure you've got all the expenses covered. You don't want the stress of finances while you're trying to build your business, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to that, Brandon. I think that's a survivalist approach for some of us as business owners. But speak to that if you could.
Well, it's the preparation that you need to put into this. Okay, so if let's just talk about right now, the NSMDC conference is coming up in Atlanta. Okay, and I believe it's coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Uh,
give you this. National Minority Supplier Development Council, NMSDC.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. If you haven't already prepared to be there, then you might want to start looking at the following year because we're coming. I mean, it's very close,
Yeah.
um, and I'm talking about that not just from information and the calls and the things that we've already mentioned, but financially. Um, you want to start, months and months and months in advance, putting together some money, putting aside the budget on what you think you're going to spend. That's including the airfare. That's including the hotel. I know most people, when they go to these conferences out of town, they like to stay in the same hotel where the conference is actually
That's right.
happening. So that typically you need to start booking that, months and months and months ahead of time because everybody wants to stay in that same hotel. Most people want to stay in that same hotel. Think about the meals. If you have an opportunity to take a very important person out to lunch or dinner or something like that, be prepared. Like they may have expensive tastes and they may want steak. They may not want,
That's
Burger
right.
King. Nothing against Burger King, but just make sure that you're clear on all that could happen where you'll need to spend money because this is going to be a first impression in a lot of cases, and you have to make sure it's a great first impression. Not so you don't
Yeah,
want to have to go broke, in doing that, but you do
that's
want to
right.
just be mindful. So yeah, it's very important, and of course you have the unexpected. You may plan on going to a very specific, let's just say, after conference event, but then you get invited by someone to a better opportunity. Okay, you don't know what that better opportunity could entail, but it sounds like a better opportunity. So obviously
Hmm.
you're going to need finances and be open to pivot.
That's
right?
right.
Don't stay so entrenched in your schedule where if a better opportunity presents itself, you're not prepared to pivot. Okay, I believe that as business owners, we should always uh, you know be ready for the unexpected. Okay, we have a plan. A plan is just a blueprint, and that's the format. But be ready to go off script,
Yes,
in the right circumstances. So, yeah,
that's good.
the finances are very, very important. And look, not to get too deep into the minutia, but uh, having a great credit card with great points, where it could really benefit you. So, just keep that in mind as well.
Really benefit you. Key, key, key. And I will say, for the ladies that are thinking about this, the challenge for us is typically what shoes, right? So it's all about packing smart, because the conference coming up in Atlanta, the National Minority Supplier Development Conference, it's not necessarily a tennis shoe friendly conference like WeBank might be, because women are always on their feet. We get it, right? So you're going to have to be smart about your shoes and the longevity of your day. And so, to that point, these are the things people don't talk about. But that bag you have on your shoulder, don't put everything in there, but make sure you have a backup pair of shoes. Sometimes we're getting on shuttle buses. Sometimes we are pivoting without the ability to get to your room to change. Make sure whatever you wear is versatile enough also to be able to transition, in the event that you have to do something pretty quickly. So be professional, right? Be professional and have your shoes to switch up to casual if you need to. I think there are just these little tricks we found, especially climate wise. I'll tell you, the hardest city to pack for is New Orleans. I fail every time.
It can
I
be
fail
challenging.
every time. Brandon, I don't. New Orleans, the streets in New Orleans. I love New Orleans, but it eats your shoes,
They
and
do.
so you don't. You forget it. So you got to, like, yeah. I always have too much luggage, but when it comes to prep, Brandon, it's hit it. Like, you do need to think about it, and I want you to be mindful and as
Yeah.
much prep as you can do to have dollars set aside just for this, right? That are not impacting home, business, payroll. Hello.
Exactly.
Be ready. All right, Caleb, what's up next? We're going to bring this closely to close. So, planning for success. All right, get out of your comfort zone. Talk to some folks you wouldn't ordinarily talk to, um, and have some conversations that will change your life. It's okay. Talk to people that don't look like you, feel like you, not in your same industry, and plan ahead. We've said that already. Stay organized and focused. All right, here we go. Let's talk about the tools. So I'll tell you what we use, and you can tell us what you use. But you need to be using something. So how do you collect and manage this data? Business cards are still out there, and people still have them. Be prepared for the business card. I use a tool called. I'll just say this. I use a CR a digital. What's the right word? A digital CRM. There are tons of them, like Blink and Hi Hello and Haystack, things like that. People or Popple. There are
Oh,
tons of them. Popple, is that what it is?
mhm.
You scan a QR code. The person scans a QR code. They get your information. They exchange with you. On those apps, there's also a spot for you to scan a business card. So you can scan a business card and goes right into your tool. If you have it set up the right way, you can also download and extract, and it go right into your actual CRM if that's not your CRM. So what we do at the Kyra company is we use our tool. Everybody goes in. Even if I get a stack of business cards, I'm gonna scan them all in. They become contacts, and the tool categorizes them by the day and the location. And then I can shoot a note, or really, my chief of staff already knows this is what we're doing this week. We already know what we're doing. She's extracting, and if there's a need for a meeting or whatever the next step is, she already knows where to get the information from. It's going into our CRM. In our CRM, I have a lead board. If there's an opportunity, or we're setting up appointments, or I've sent some information from my phone, because I have my capability statement on the ready, I have my corporate deck on the ready, I also have my scheduling link on the ready, so that I can just click and share, or click and do it for them live. Um, then we put them right on the lead board. and we start working them. If we have dates out that are further out from the conference, here's a note. Don't send anybody an email while they're still at the conference because it's not going to be read. Do not.
True.
Unless you're there saying, send it to me right now. I'm about to forward it. Wait a couple days because they need to get past all the clouds. They haven't been at their desk, they've been preparing. They're probably not going to see your email until like the following Wednesday, so to speak. So make a commitment on when you're going to email them. Even if you go back to your hotel room and draft it, schedule it for that day because that's going to benefit you in the long run. And then you can follow up. But we take those contacts, Branden, we put them in our tool, we extract them, and we put them in our CRM. We do code them so we know where they came from, where the leads came from. They're automatically coded, and and then we work them. So I'm not doing a whole lot of data entry or follow up on the back end in terms of, okay, get back to my room. Now I've got to do all the work. I'm doing it as I go. I'm also making notes. Sometimes, now this will get a little wacky sometimes. If the person's talking to you and giving you tons of good nuggets and you're still trying to get that business card in the tool, pull out your note taker on your phone and just start keying in the notes so that you don't miss the points. They may give you 3 bullet points that they want you to come back with. Make sure you capture those, but make sure you do it so you can send back a thorough email. Like take the time and be present. And so that's how we do it. And it works for us. And typically, what we hear back is that our follow up is really, really strong, and that's what keeps people, really working on our behalf or connected to us. Any thoughts on that, Branden? Follow
Well,
up. What do you do?
how you follow up is giving them a prelude as to what type of business partner you can be.
Yeah.
So with what you just described, any corporation can find appreciation in that because they're whenever you're going after business, you are in essence representing them to a certain
Hmm.
degree,
Hmm.
right? So if you're not efficient in the way that you're able to capture information, um, you know, spit back information, um, follow the line of follow up and be very clear and concise on exactly what was said and even capturing the point. If you can capture the point, uh, right there in the moment, if you're not able to do that, then what confidence are you giving to the corporation that you can work for them? They're not going to want that to, because they make us in the corporate environment. For any of you who have ever worked for any corporation, they make you be on point. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that makes you look good as a small business is if you're able to, get a CRM and get all of these automation tools that will make doing business more streamlined and make you look better. These are things that we in the corporate world already have. So we want to do business with people who look like us or who are similar to us, who we can talk to each other and speak the same language, as opposed to we're
Right.
over here on this level, but yet you have this antiquated system that takes you an additional few days to get back with us, and then the information isn't accurate, and then it just doesn't look good, and there's a lot of frustration. So keep that in mind. That's all a bunch of great stuff you just talked about, Kyra, especially being able to break out the phone and capture things right then and there, and you already have it coded to go to where you want it to go. I mean, that's doing business very smartly, and you have to take the time to prepare your system, to walk into these conferences with that capability.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a big deal. And I know we could be better. We could be sharper, tighter. Depending on the conference, sometimes we have, when someone sends their information in, we have an auto response and we'll do, send them a giveaway. Maybe we'll do that this year. Let's think about that, Kayla. Send them some type of freemium item, a premium free item, just to let them know, basically we're here to partner with you. Like partnership is critical for us. So we'll bounce back up to the slides. We got a few more minutes. Listen, 90% networking importance. Like if you can have meaningful conversations, um, that's gonna be the key. So it says over 90% of professionals believe that face-to-face meetings are essential for business. Listen, We're all going to be right here. Have
Mhm.
it. Mean it. Have it. Put a mint in your mouth. Don't disturb anybody by your breath. And I hate to say that, but I've definitely been in conversations where, thank you, Tamara. And I've been in conversations where someone I kind of got shook before, you're like, oh. And I'm saying that because people don't forget that. How you make me feel, I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, right? And I might have missed what you said, but preparation is everything. Everything.
Kyle, I'm gonna take it back to the wood real quick.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Mint, not chew. Okay, don't be chewing gum in somebody's face and smacking and all of that stuff when you're talking to somebody. Do the mint.
Do the mint. And listen, if you're blessed with little cheeks like mine, I just store it right in a little cheek right there. Um, to keep it. That's what these cheeks are for. But I think, Branden, when we think about presenting our best self and having really engaging conversations, I can remember um this happened. I was standing in one of the exhibits and I was talking to a colleague, and while I was talking to him, he was explaining something and talking about someone else that I needed to meet that was going to be impactful, right? While he was having that conversation, the person walks up. He's like, Kyra, you need to meet this person, and here's why. You need to know her, and here's why. Oh, by the way, come to this event. I'm going to text it to you right now. Or here's the QR code. Go ahead and register. Things can happen just like that.
Yep.
And what I recognized is that if Branden trusts me as a partner, then Brandon's more likely to introduce me to other trusted partners, even folks at a higher or upper echelon, because he understands I know how to move and experience and have the experience in that room. And you're going to be more apt to really push and be an advocate and a champion for, someone that you believe in. And I think that's important because we don't want to take anyone for granted. You don't know who anybody knows, but networking, that face to face, having that conversation and going back, and these are people, everyone, let's not forget these are people. Like, these are people we're talking to. I remember when I literally jumped into entrepreneurship, and my mentor was like, these are just like regular people. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know. To me, they have the logo of the company they represent on their forehead. They're the organization. And what I learned is that they want to be treated like people.
Y'all
They're
have
not a
more in
trans.
common.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but y'all
Oh,
have
you got
more in
it.
common than you may know.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, they are people. And I've even had people say to me, I love what you're doing. I'd love to learn how to work with you, or I'd love to understand better how you got into this. They are interested in you just the same. We're all fascinated by what each other does, and be okay with that. And I think that's a big piece. I feel like we're just humanizing the experience, because when we get back and we'll post all this good stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram about our experience, just know that there's months of prep that went into this and strategy that went into this. So the good time photos that we choose to share really just represent some very specific highlights of all the work that we've done. If you could see my desk right now, right? It's not that it's a mess, but it's full of strategy, and we're working through the details. And there's prep that I have to do before I'm gone for several days from my office, right? I'm walking around with my phone in my hand, but I'm not walking around with my computer open the entire time. So, what do I need to do? Now, good thing is some of my clients will be there too. So, we'll be able to do a little work if we need to. But I think that that's important for everyone to remember. And not everyone can walk away for the entire duration. Go for the portion you can. Maybe you can go for a couple of days. The
Yep.
first time we went to the National Minority Supplier Development Conference in New Orleans, that was my first one, believe it or not. I've been going locally, but we went for the first time a couple years ago. I could only squeeze out, just from a calendar perspective, like 2.5 days. And so I'm like, Kayla, should we do it? And she's like, let's go. And we literally went in on a Sunday, and Sunday was actually full of stuff. Went on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, I want to say. And we didn't get to do the full exhibit day, but we got so much done in those 3 days, and went to sessions and workshops and learned about infrastructure and learned about transportation, just understanding all of the content that they're sharing across on a national level that concerns small businesses and businesses in general. You guys don't miss the workshops, don't miss the sessions. Like those, that's the divulgence of national dialogue on what's happening across industries, multiple industries. Okay, we have a couple more slides, I think, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up and give you guys back your afternoon. All right, Branden. So we talked about this. So how you attend matters, right? You might be an attendee, you might be a volunteer, an exhibitor, a speaker, or a sponsor. How you attend matters. Think about what you need to attend the conference in the way that you're going to, and make sure you make it worth your while. What
Yep.
are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Anything?
I mean, also, keep in mind if you're in a position to be a sponsor or to have an exhibit booth, to have a presence at the conference, that's also something that's beneficial as well. Look into that,
Yeah.
start to budget for that. That's a part of your marketing strategy. That's a part of your sales strategy. So
That's right. That's right. Kayla, this next slide, we talked about this, but this is what it could look like. It's cut off at the end, at the bottom, but maximize your investment, right? How do you plan for it? So just in short, it's like registration, there's a hotel and transportation, there's food, there's a tire, and the extras, right? That puts us what in excess, that's what, about 330, was that 36?
Mm-hmm.
3,600 bucks. 3,600 bucks.
But you can land that contract that'll take care of all of that in a couple of months.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. And I want you to know it's possible. I have some stories to tell you, but I want you to know it is possible. And we have the pleasure of working with, I think, now one of our favorite clients, because we met at a conference and they saw us a couple of years in a row. And they said, your energy, I never forgot. Our interaction was brief, but it was connecting. We got connected down to exchanging numbers, and we're connected on LinkedIn. They saw us on LinkedIn, made a phone call, invited us out to do an event for them. And not only did we do that activation, but then we've entered into an amazing agreement to serve their organization. And that has helped us tremendously to see the value of attending a conference. Like, multipliers are real, guys. Like times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 10. Like, think about how impactful it is when you do it right. This is it. Okay. So wrapping up, brand identity is important. Make sure your logos and make sure your graphics look good, guys. Come on now. Make sure your graphics and your brand identity looks good. Make sure you're on brand. On brand. Whatever that is for you, be on brand. Nobody wants to hear about the fact that you woke up late. Get up earlier. Like, figure it out. And then make sure that you are visible, right? And you know who your target audience is. Go to them, talk to them, and be specific. Like Branden said, be concise. And then help to establish that brand loyalty with those other business owners. So when you look at this is kind of like the dichotomy of who the Smart CEO brand is as a whole. Like, we really want you to understand who we are as a brand. And this is a service line of our company. This is not the core of the Kyra company. The Smart CEO brand is how we work together with CEOs to learn and grow. Like, that's what we do here. But it's about having that identity that's strong, having the awareness and being visible enough so people can see you and understand what your growth looks like, and then establishing brand loyalty. That same thing is true for every single brand that's going to be represented in every one of those settings. So I just really want to reinforce that, how important it is that, I'm not walking around with a Smart CEO pin on, but I'm on point every time. And my team is too. And how does that look for you all, Branden? Like, what's the pep talk that you have with yourself when you're showing up? Because before you're an employee, you're Branden, and you have your own brand. And so what does that look like when you think about how you're presenting to the market?
As a business owner or as an employee of a corporation?
I say both. How is Branden showing up? And then how is Branden showing up as an employee of the corporation?
So as a business owner, I'm making sure that I'm showing up a lot like you were explaining when it comes to, maturity, ready to do business with a major corporation. My technology is on point. My automation is on point. Everything that you see, everything that you hear sounds like it's familiar to the person I'm speaking with. So I'm speaking on that same level. As an employee, when I represent the firm, I want to make sure that I'm a positive representation of information and access to know to let our business owners know that there are opportunities to do business with us. And my current role, the reason why I go to a lot of these conferences now, I want to make sure that if we need to do some training, if we need to talk about, what are those pieces we can put in place to make you better positioned to do business with a JP Morgan Chase, let's schedule some time. Let's talk about that. And then for the next conference or for the next engagement or for the next opportunity, you're in a much better position to win some business or take it to the next level.
That's good. That's real good. And as we bring this conversation to a close, I want you all to really put yourself in the seat and figure out exactly how you're showing up and how you're preparing to show up. And when I say sit in the seat, meaning be an attendee, if you're a speaker, if you're an exhibitor, what have you, I want you to think about the value you're bringing, the investment that you're making, and how to maximize it. There is absolutely no secret behind this process. It's really about how prepared you're willing to be. And the reason why we're having this roundtable conversation, and Branden and I do this quarterly, we're having a conversation of some sort with business owners quarterly. One, because Branden has changed the way my business shows up as my consultant for the business. And not only are we colleagues, but he is a guide for me. And so I'm willing at all points to sit and listen and learn. And I can tell you that the effectiveness of your individual brand really does reign. I can be in DC, I can be in Philly, I can be in Arizona, and someone will ask me, "Do you know Branden Morris?" And I'm like, "Of course. Of course I do. Don't I look like I have been affected positively by Branden Morris and my business?" And the reason why I'm saying that is because there is a level of just excellence that Branden exhibits when he's working with small businesses. He understands our issues, our plights, and our needs. And I have very well packaged conversations with Branden, and then I have some where he's like, "Kyra, sit down. Like, let's what are you talking about?" But you got to have that you've got to have someone in your corner that can do that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Branden's brand literally is it's an understanding, and people will, if they were willing to refer me back to Branden and I'm in a whole nother state, then that speaks to the caliber of what Branden brings to the table every day. And that has happened multiple times. Multiple times. Absolutely. So your brand matters, how you show up matters, and CEOs and leaders and our corporate partners, how we engage together matters. So I don't want anyone to think that there is anyone, we're on the same page we're on the same level when it comes to how we show up. That corporate leader and that business owner, we've both got to do our jobs so that we can make sure that we make the magic that's designed to happen when we come together. And that's the piece. So come ready, come open, and be considerate of the fact that small businesses, and this is to my corporations, that small business leaders have really invested deep to be present. And where you can provide guidance and support to them, do that. And where you just got to send them back to the starting lineup, do that too, because we learn better when we fail. And so I just want to encourage everyone to really invest wisely, to think smart about how they're leading their brand. And Branden Morris, thank you once again for allowing me to spend time with you and for you to be with the Smart CEOs.
Thank you as always, Kyra. You're an amazing business owner.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Branden. You all get in touch with us. You know the way. You can email us at the Kyra Company, Kyra at thekyracompany.com, or admin at thekyracompany.com. All of our socials. Find us. We're out there. Click this link, share it with someone, help someone else show up in a way that you would be proud of. All right, everybody. Until next time, this is Kyra Rénel signing off. The Smart CEOs have done it once again, an amazing roundtable here, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.